I'm Jeffrey Villadwen, this time in Weekend Generals, Buff and Shine submod for Broken Crescent. This is the latest version and it is quite stable during gameplay. It is a little bit hard to launch sometimes. So my heart is not completely in it. I hope I can make it justice. This mod has been in development for about a year or more now. And the idea was to bring into Broken Crescent various scripts, other older scripts, for example the Jizzya, Kafirs and Dimmis script of Byzantine Boy that was made for Broken Crescent. It was actually a submod, it wasn't just a script, it was a complete submod. And it brings also various scripts from submods from mainly stainless steel, including the supply script from Big's Grim Reality submod for stainless steel, as well as various other features from stainless steel, various ancillaries and character traits, for example, and also a loyalty script. Stainless steel is a script heavy mod, so it's something like 7 GB compared to Broken Crescent, which is only a little bit over 1 GB. So Broken Crescent, a very stripped down mod. The idea is it has just 2 or 3 features that are unique to it, and everything else is very bare bones Total War. So it's like the Zen of Total War. It has just the bare bones Total War feel to it, with a lot of things that are not essential to Total War, like assassins, sometimes priests, or various other things just removed from the game. So it runs fast, it has quick turn times and so on. And it has just a couple of features that are very essential to it. For example, the area of recruitment system that make it very unique. On the other hand, stainless steel is the very opposite of it. It's like quantum mechanics of Total Wars. It has a huge campaign script, and all these sort of scripts run at the same time with various kind of features that have to do with different things and give stainless steel its unique feel. But these mods are almost like complete opposite, and Buff and Shine brings the stainless steel script overload into Broken Crescent, basically. Whether you like this idea or not, if you like stainless steel, you want to play in the Middle East but with a stainless steel feel to the campaign, then maybe Buff and Shine is for you. So I'll go over the various topics that I want to identify as being different. First of all, I'll go over the new factions. There are 3 new factions in this submod. Yep, sorry. Where are we? So, the 3 new unique factions. The first one is the Zalgurid Atabeg. The Zalgurid dynasty was founded by a Gurid emir, as I understand it. It's based down here in the southern part of Iran, in the area of Fars, and existed around about this time. At around about this time, the Gurids were very strong, and they occupied most of Iran. But gradually they gave way to Khwarezm, the Khwarezm Shah, and various Gurid emirs broke off, and then eventually they came under the Khwarezm Shah's vassals. But for a brief period, some of these emirs had a dynasty that had its independent sort of existence. And one of them, I guess, one of these dynasties were the Zalgurids, and they had a strong presence in the Arabian Gulf area, mainly on the northern part of the Arabian Gulf, but at one point, I do believe they conquered Bahrain. So they attacked the units of Bahrain, and they conquered the actual island of Bahrain. Eventually they became Khwarezm vassals. So that's one of the factions. The second faction is this light blue, is the Principality of Kiev, the Kievan Rus. The idea here was to bring again those wonderful Rusici Total War models into the mod, and the Kievan Rus has the Rusici models. Of course they are fantastic. I'm not sure there's a need for a second Rus faction personally. We already have the Principality of Vladimir Suzdal up there introduced. I kind of feel these factions don't really belong to Broken Crescent. Of course the units are wonderful, the skins are amazing, the models from Rusici are fantastic. I guess if you want to play as a Russian faction with those wonderful units and Broken Crescent, you can do it now. But you could already do it just with the Vladimir Suzdal Principality. The third faction introduced by the submod is... what is it? There's another one. There is another one, of course, the Bavandids. So the Bavandids were also a very interesting faction. Unfortunately, they have a pink color, a pinkish purple. I guess, you know, is to identify them as a kind of descendants of the Persian kings. And the original founder appears to have been a member of the royal family of Persia. So they are the closest faction to ancient Persians. And unfortunately this prince was murdered. And he was succeeded by his murderer, some kind of guy who took over this small kingdom that eked an existence at the bottom of the Caspian Sea. And they are a very unique faction, I have to say, historically speaking. It's quite amazing that something of old Persia cling into existence in this way, in this sort of remote area. They start with only 1 or 2 settlements, I can't remember. I think only 1, perhaps, maybe 2. They're a different religious sect. They're Muslim, but they are Shia. They are the same sect as the Sindh, who are here in Pakistan, this faction here. So they're the same religion as them, but different from everyone else. And that's very tough, because religious conversion is very slow in Buff and Shine. And so it's they're in a very tough situation trying to convert settlements they take over. So that's the 3 new factions. There's also a little bit of a change. We have the Seljuks of Iraq back, this faction here. This was there until Broken Crescent 2.3. And then it was removed in Broken Crescent 2.4. I wasn't sure about this change. In any case, it was removed, and it was replaced by a faction near the Zalgurids called the Seljuks of Kerman. It was indeed such an emir, whatever, an emirate, also semi-independent at this time, but it was short-lived. So there were a couple of rulers, and then it disappeared around about the time when this campaign starts. So I'm not sure it was a great choice. It was meant to fill up this empty space in the middle of the campaign, but it is empty there because it was mostly controlled by the Gurids, and if you gave all those regions to the Gurids, it would be like a super strong faction right in the middle of the map. And I guess it was for these considerations that this area was left grey, unoccupied, occupied by rebels. So that's the overview of the start of the new factions. There are also the factions introduced in version 2.4 of the mod, which are up here. For example, the Karahitai, a wonderful faction, one of my favorites. Then there are another interesting faction from Rushichi Total War, the Khanate of Bulgars. A really great faction, the Oldeguzid Atabeg in the area of Azerbaijan. Another amazing faction, the Zengids. They should have been in every medieval game. They're as important as Egypt and the Turks. I don't know why they're missing from so many mods. Very important faction. So they're in the game as of 2.4. Then the Uyunids of Bahrain, we just talked about them, that they were attacked by the Zalgurid Sultanate and Emirate, and they were occupied and defeated. So it's them. And then, of course, another new faction is the Imamate of Yemen. And we've already talked about the Principality of Vladimir Suzdal, the Russian faction. So these are the new factions. I think I covered all of them. 3 of them for Bap and Sign, the rest of them in the new version of Broken Crescent, version 2.4. So I've covered now the factions. Another thing that is different in the submod, and it's great, it's one of the things that I really like, is that it introduces difficulty levels. So vanilla does not have difficulty levels except for diplomacy. So when you choose easy or hard, the only thing that differs is diplomacy in vanilla. And the same was true in Broken Crescent until recently, because it was carried over from the vanilla, it's not from Kingdoms. Now, Kingdoms introduced 4 different difficulty levels, also with a campaign AI, and also the money that the factions get is called the King's Purse, and it's part of the campaign script. So some factions, factions get more money in the easy difficulty levels, less in the hard difficulty levels. So that's now part of the game, the Buff and Shine submod, and also difficulty levels for the campaign AI. So if you're playing very hard, the AI is very aggressive. If you play on easy difficulty, the AI is passive. Occasionally it becomes aggressive, but most of the time it's passive. And this is the main difference, actually, in the Total War, at least in Medieval 2 Total War, in Rome Total War. The difference is the AI is basically how aggressive the AI is, how often it attacks you, that kind of thing. There's nothing else. So some people complain that why does it attack me so much at hard difficulty? Why can't it be without so many attacks? Why is the AI so aggressive? Well, that's really the only thing that's different between the difficulty levels, is the aggressiveness of the AI. There's nothing else. It's not like building takes longer and whatever, there are fewer building queues or anything like that. It's just the aggressiveness of the AI. Okay. And so now this has been introduced with Buff and Shine. I had a submod myself that I was adding difficulty levels for version 2.3. And it was a plan to have this as part of the game for 2.4, but it never happened. But I have a plan to do it. The problem is, to do this, you have to change the game. You cannot, it's not save game compatible, this sort of thing. At least the King's Purse is not save game compatible. So I haven't done it yet because it would mean changing the actual game. Yeah, so it wouldn't be a change that's save game compatible, and I don't like doing changes on the mod myself, being on the team, unless they are save game compatible. So we're looking at possibly moving the mod forward, creating a higher level 2.5 or so. Possibly, maybe. But anyway, that's another story. So that's about the difficulty level, so that is covered. The building system has been changed, and so let's launch the game. I have started a Bamandid campaign, so I'm going to launch the game. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go into my campaign. And I'm playing on easy difficulty because the Bavandits were actually, I found them quite tough to start with, honestly. So it wasn't an easy campaign on hard difficulty, very hard. And I wanted to see how the campaign goes, so I just decided, I wanted to see the features of the mod. I didn't want to spend forever fighting battles. So I'm going to launch the year 1240A. So we're in the year 1240. In the Middle East, we are in the Bavandid Sultanate or Kingdom. These were the closest people to the ancient Persians or to the medieval Persians. So here we are. They have this area here in at the bottom of the Caspian Sea. I have expanded quite a bit. So they're based around this place called Ray and Sari. So you see there's this mountain range that was very easy to defend and impassable. So they managed to cling on to this very little corner of Persia and lived on. And so I've conquered various regions. So let's have a look at the buildings. So let's launch, let's say Ray. Let's launch the capital. I think the capital is this one. One thing is that opening up the scrolls for the buildings sometimes takes a long wait. So Sari is the minor city. I may have moved the capital. I'm not sure where the capital is, but it's this used to be the original capital. And you can see some of the building queues here. One thing that you will realize immediately is that there are no separate barracks for archers, for stables for cavalry, and so on. There's only the barracks are completely overhauled. They're very different barracks. So they're basically 2 lines of barracks. Actually, there are 3 lines of barracks. Okay, so one of them is, let me see, one of them is this one. And it's called a guardhouse. If you go into a fortress or a castle, it's called militia or something. I don't know why it's called militia in a fortress and guardhouse in a settlement. It should be the other way around. Never mind. So here it is, militia barracks. So this is the most basic barracks, but you can get from it Afghani hillmen, so you can get, so let's also look at the units that you get from this. Sorry, we say this is Gorgon, so you can get these Afghani hillmen, yeah. You can get the Afghani tribesmen, these ones, so these are javeliniers. Then you can get the Iranian archers. And you can get these pagan, these are spearmen. And also you can get from these barracks, these horse archers. So you can get cavalry, you can get archers, you can get sort of axemen who really should have been recruited in forts, as well as spearmen who are militia types that are usually recruited in cities, in civilian cities. So you get all those things from just one type of barracks. This is totally unlike anything. I haven't seen anything like this. It's just a feature of the mod. It's not right or wrong. I'm not crazy about it. I prefer separate barracks. It's one way to do it. It's a different idea. You see it there, though there's a certain logic about this. If you look at the other style of barracks, I've left some of the old ones that have. So this one, Master Field. So here you get some of the same units, but very often you get slightly better units. I think the previous barracks were more developed, and these ones, militia drill square, yeah, I'm not sure. But here you get, okay, in this case you get exactly the same ones, but sometimes you get slightly better units in a Master Field compared to the militia barracks. But here you get actually exactly the same. You get You know, you get in militia barracks all the units you get in the master field in this case. So master field, it just gives you more, possibly, but that's about it. Actually, it doesn't even give you more. We still get only one, so it's completely pointless to have both of them. Yeah, you can just get away with just one. And then the other units that you can get in this settlement are the ones you get from the slave barracks. So you get this junior Gulam, cavalry, horse archers, as well as lancers. And that's it. There are no separate stables. There are no other barracks. They're just these three types of barracks, and two of them are very similar. There is another thing. I don't know at this time if I had this. Oh, actually, by the way, before I show you this other type of building, Kazvin is a very interesting settlement, and what we see here is this very interesting, unique building. Now, there has been a call for ages to add unique buildings into the mod, and version 2.4 added a few. There were just a few before version 2.4. Version 2.4 added a few. For example, in Baghdad, some of the buildings people wanted to see unique buildings, but only just a few. And I believe this one was added by Buff and Shine. I don't think it's in version 2.4. I'm not absolutely certain. But I don't think this is in the official version. I think this was added by Buff and Shine. The fortress of Alamut, stronghold of the ancillaries. And this was basically where the assassins were based. I'm not sure if the Ingalls teaching, you see there's some of this stuff. There was a sect, and eventually they developed this idea with the assassins, and they were based around here. And what this building gives you, it gives you assassins level 3. At the beginning of the game, you don't need to build any sort of assassin type buildings like taverns and so on. If you own this settlement, then you get assassins, level 3 assassins, already at the start of the game. However, the assassins are so buffed, so nerfed, that are terrible. They're completely useless in this mod. They really are useless. And on the downside, you get a public order bonus of -15, so negative bonus. You get a penalty of public order because of this building. Okay. So that was the special building, the unique buildings. We are hoping to add more of these in future releases of Broken Crescent. And there is another interesting building. Where can we find it? Maybe here. Nope. Here. Somewhere. I hope I have one of these somewhere. Maybe here. Ah, yeah, here it is. Tribal Alliance bandits. So you get similar units that you were getting before, the usual units that you've seen. You get a couple of new ones, these Tapurian horsemen and Dailami infantry. Wow, you get quite a few. Tajik urban. So the Tajik, you could say this is a tribal unit. Dailamis are tribal. The Tapurian horsemen, I'm not sure what they are. But a lot of the other units, the Dailamis are a tribe, were a tribe, Turkish tribe. And the Tajiks, you could say they're some kind of Turkish sort of people. The rest are not really Turkish as far as I know. I mean, the tribes we're talking about, so they are the Turkmen mercenaries and the Dailami tribesmen. So this is one of the features of Broken Crescent. The mercenaries are usually tribes people, the local tribes, people who lived out in the countryside in this particular part of the world at that particular time. So around here live the Dailamis and Turkomans. Turkomans lived everywhere, really. Horsemen lived on horseback. And so you get these, and these are the tribes. And the idea is when you have this tribal alliance, it's not 100% okay, I guess, but almost there. You get free upkeep for some units, and they include some of these tribal units. Unfortunately, you also get free upkeep for all kinds of other people, like Persian archers. Not Persian archers, I'm not sure, but I think Persian archers as well. But for example, these Persian spearmen or some of these units, there can be also free upkeep in these with this building. And so for the first time, we have free upkeep in settlements. Before, you could get free upkeep of 2 in forts. Unfortunately, all forts have been removed. It's also not possible to build forts. So you see here in the selection, where is it? Here, below. Sometimes takes forever to launch something. Okay, it's not launching. It's not launching, it's better want to launch.
Yes, Lord.
Okay, sometimes some things take forever to launch. Let's put a, see if I can find a faction member, put him outside. There's something else I have to show you in a minute. We're not there yet.
An honor to serve, my lord.
Okay, whatever. I mean, I cannot do it. So you cannot have castles, forts. You cannot build forts. There are none in this mod, so you don't get free upkeep. But you can now get free upkeep from these tribal, whatever they'll call these tribal buildings that you can build relatively late in the campaign. So I've already played 133 game turns. So that's some of the features of the building system. It is very different from standard Broken Crescent, if you're familiar with the standard Broken Crescent. Yes. The next point 4, is about the area of recruitment system. So you already saw these buildings. These buildings, you can build them anywhere. Now, one of the key characteristics, almost the most important feature, the most unique feature that made Broken Crescent such a different mode, totally different from any other mode, was the area of recruitment system. And that system meant that around your home provinces, you can recruit all the units that are unique to your faction. But if you leave your home provinces, you go and conquer Arabia or whatever, you can no longer recruit the same units. You have access to some local units, some local tribes people, as mercenaries, as well as some levies, which are very simple levies from those areas. But you cannot get the units you could get in your home provinces. So if you find a battle and your units need retraining, you have to send them all the way back to your home provinces to get retrained. And that was part of the difficulty of the Broken Crescent mod. And it was like a very unique feature. This is like, for me, this is almost the most important thing about Broken Crescent. It makes it so unique. And it has been removed, unfortunately. I mean, I find this a great shame. I think this is like hubris. I mean, I don't understand why this was done. But this submod has removed the area of recruitment system. And there's still a little bit of, there's something like longer times until the same unit becomes available again if you're far away from your home provinces. But you can build the same buildings. You can build here, you can build them in India, you can build them in Arabia, you can build them in whatever, in the Balkans, anywhere, in Russia. If you get there, you can build the same buildings and get the same units, Persian spearmen, whatever. It makes no sense. I don't like this. I really don't. What can I say? I mean, some people, I guess, had issues, didn't like the area of recruitment system. But if you don't like it, why play Broken Crescent? What is it? I mean, you want to play as the Ghaznavids or whatever, and you have to play as the Ghaznavids, and the only mode that has them is Broken Crescent, but you want to play in the stainless steel type gameplay? I don't understand. I don't think that's the case. Play stainless steel if you want a stainless steel type of feel. Anyway, so the area of recruitment system is gone. You have these buildings that you saw here. You can build them anywhere. So these sort of buildings that we saw earlier. So these sorts of whatever. Here it is again, the Tribal Alliance, and these other slave buildings and so on. And the Dimmis community. So that is going to bring me to the Jizzya, Kafirs and Dimmis submod. Or maybe I'll leave this for later. Cover this mod later. Let's go to the next thing. So the next thing on my list that I wanted to talk about was the supply system. This was brought in from a submod for stainless steel. Then the submod, the script from the submod was added to other submods, and then it was changed, and then it was changed again, and eventually found its way into Buff and Shine, possibly changed again. And so what the supply system does is, if you click on one of the generals, for example, Emir the Sickly, you will see that somewhere down here it says supply excessive. So if you're in a settlement, you have full supply, and then if you leave the settlement, you have something like 5 game turns before your supplies run out. I think it's 5 game turns. And then when your supplies run out, you have to forage. I'm not sure if everybody can forage. In the original script, I think every general could forage. But I think in Buff and Shine, only generals with dread can forage. So most of my generals would not be able to forage. That means that they can live off the land. And then that will be at a cost of, let's say if they're in an enemy territory, that will cost enemy territory. That will be like eating off the enemy's lands. And then eventually they'll start losing in movement. So they won't be able to move very much. That could be an issue. So that's the supply script. It's an extra layer of micromanagement. It usually doesn't affect the gameplay much because you rarely stay out of a settlement for more than a turn or two. But it could potentially. It's a thing you have to have in mind. So that's one of those scripts that have been introduced from stainless steel. Another thing I want to show you is the priests. The priests are very interesting.
How may I
Okay, let's go back into the settlement browser. Come on. So you see here there are sometimes there are church buildings, if I can find them. Oh, where are the church? Well, I think this was recently conquered. Maybe I don't have one there. Let's go to here maybe. Okay, so these mosques here. I want to find one. I'm looking for something. Okay, minareted. One that's not minareted. Where are they? This is also minareted. Okay. Well, the very simple ones, come on, there must be one somewhere. Okay, this one, for example, small Ismaili masjid. So this is the very basic one. I think this, you build this in 2 game turns. It does have minarets. And gives you public conversion bonus due to happiness, 5%. And that's it. You don't get a public, you don't get a religious conversion, and you don't get imams from this. Then, having built this, you can go on to the next level. This one, Ismaili Masjid. This one will give you public order bonus due to happiness, 10%. So an extra 5% compared to the previous one. You still cannot get an imam. This costs about 4 game turns, I think, to build. So 6 game turns later, you still don't have an imam from these religious buildings, these mosques. And the total public order conversion is just, bonus is just 10%. It's not a lot. That's okay. I'm not against it. I'm just saying it's not a lot. And then after this, when you go from a minor city to a bigger city, or sometimes you have the opportunity, Bamidid city, or still a minor city. Does this one have minareted? This has a minareted masjid. Once you have a minareted masjid, you can get an imam finally, but this takes 6 game turns to build. And it's not immediately available, you have to wait a little bit. And now you start getting religion conversion bonus of 1%. But only with this, the 3rd level mosque, you start getting religion conversion bonus, and you get an imam. So it's a long wait. And once you get an imam, the imams look like this.
God's servant.
They have zero piety. And this guy is a walking bastion of blasphemy. He fears the evil eye, he fears the jinn. And so it's not just him. So here's another one, he's like that. And there's another one, is like that. And here's like that. And some of them are a little bit better. I don't know. This one has two. He still fears the evil eye, has odd habits, but far from devout or whatever. At least he's got something.
How may I
Okay,
say?
so it's zero loyalty, zero
God's
religious.
servant.
And this was one, piety, shows no real sense of spirituality. Okay, so we have a bunch of these imams here, and their religious conversion is still at 18% to Shia. I mean, can you see the issue here? I'm not against it. I kind of like it. But it's going to take forever to convert the populace to your religion or to your sect. If you're Shia, it's so rare. It's like 5% Shia if you look at some other places. Like here, 0%. And here, okay, here they have already conquered this place. But here I've already conquered this 18%, and I've conquered these places. It's only 18%. And down here is 2%. I think I own this as well, maybe recently. It's only 2% Shia. It's going to take forever. I mean, all these priests have to hang around in this place for several, like 10 game turns for it to go to about 30 or 25 or 30. And then they have to move on to the next area and next area. Oh, it takes forever. Okay, so that's the other thing about the religious conversion. It's very slow, especially if you play as Shia. If you play as Sunni, Sunni is much more common. And so there's already a high percentage of the population in various Sunni areas being already your religion. But if you play as Shia, you're in trouble. So that covers the thing about priests. The most important, perhaps, and interesting feature is the loyalty script. The loyalty script. So that was introduced also from the submod for stainless steel, I do believe, and I have not seen it before, and it is very bizarre. It's been in development, it's been changing shape as far as I understand it. It's there is a loyalty aspect in the main mod, in the main game in Medieval 2 Total War. So if your faction leader is neither chivalrous nor dreadful, and if he has low authority, then that creates an issue with public order in all your settlements. And this was, I believe, this was enhanced a little bit in some of the stainless steel mods, sort of releases, and some submods and so on. But here it has been taken to a very strange, very, I don't know, I shouldn't call it strange, a very unique direction. You either like it or hate it, I guess. Perhaps, hopefully you will like it. It's not going to leave you indifferent. Now, they say it has a strong RPG element, a role play game element. This mod, it has a lot of ancillaries and traits and so on. And one of the things that happens is with loyalty. And loyalty can be very extreme. So you've seen these generals here?
Yes.
This general's hanging out there. This general's hanging out there. What are they doing? Well, they were in the settlements. If I put them in the settlement, I'm going to do it. Watch.
An honor to serve, my lord.
Red. If they stay in the settlement, it's like, okay, this is like it's only 50%. Do I have another guy in there? I have another guy. The other guy maybe helps or something, but usually you get 0%, like zero, really. 0% public order if you have one of these generals in there. What happened to these generals is that they've gone rebel. Supplies, chivalrous and rule, unwatched by king, rebel. There it is. Total loss of loyalty. And then somewhere down there, you are not my king. Look at this. And this general now has no loyalty, 0 loyalty. And if he goes into a settlement, the settlement will rebel. He himself does not rebel, so you see he's not a rebel. So I put them all outside the settlements to avoid this trouble. And they're all like this. Understand logistics. Some of them have such nice traits. King's right hand, rebel. You're not my king. This is exactly the problem with all these scripts. He's a Lord High Chancellor. Wow. And he's, what kind of High Chancellor is this? I mean, what's going on? You know, it's a kind of civil war type situation, I guess, but nothing happens really. They just stop moving, basically, and they become useless. And this is, you know, there's so many scripts that one script gives him high loyalty to the king, king's right hand. Another script works against the previous script and gives him this rebel, you're not my king sort of quality. And that's because my king, my faction leader, who is, where is he? Who is here? The Ispa Bard. He's not a sultan. It's like a Persian title. It's called the Ispa Bard. And the Ispa Bard has no chivalry, no dread. In fact, originally it had 2 dread. I'll tell you about him in a minute. And he had 5 authority. And now it's gone down to 3. And God knows what's going to happen to him. And I'm trying to make him chivalrous because he got started with dread. And because of this, everyone else is rebelling. And what happened with this poor guy, so unfortunate, all my faction members were chivalrous. And some of them had like 4, 5, 6 chivalry. And when a new heir was chosen, and I wasn't paying much attention, the heir that was chosen was the only guy with dread. It was just one guy with dread in the whole family, and he was chosen. And he was out here in this God-forsaken place in the middle of the desert. I had made a campaign here with my king. I captured these 2 places, and I put my king back to the center here just to keep everything in control. But I left this guy here, and for some reason he became an heir at one point, and I wasn't paying attention. And he was the only guy with dread, and suddenly he became, you know, a couple of turns later, the heir died, the king died, or everyone died. He suddenly became king. And he was a faction leader now, and he had dread, and suddenly he was out here in the middle of nowhere. And every time he was leaving the settlement had very low public order, it was rebelling. And so I was putting him back here, and suddenly he became the king. And everyone started rebelling because they didn't like him for a king, because he was dreadful. Oh dear. I mean, it was just, oh my God. When this happened, it was like panic. I just thought, what is going on with all these people? They were all going in the state, you know, they were all very nice and chivalrous, and suddenly, where is it? So it's, I don't know. This guy is, anyway, it's got 0 loyalty. I don't know what happened. He's still, no, oh, you're not my king. There it is. Fair in rule, everything is good, and suddenly he loses everything and he's gone a rebel, and you're not my king. And this has happened like all over. Here's another one, same situation. You know, you see he has 4 chivalry, and then king's right hand, you're not my king. Makes no sense. And there's another guy in here, one of these guys. This one is also gone rebel, I think. You're not my king. Has the king's eye. I'm not so sure. So everybody has been going rebel. And so we're talking about RPG here. Okay, so what are you going to do when this thing happens? Basically, I took everyone and put him with my
orders, my lord.
With my faction leader, the Ispa Bard. Anyone who could move went to the Ispa Bard here, and I made this place the capital. Maybe this is the capital. I was looking for it. Yeah, this is the capital. So I made this place the capital, and I put my king here. So he's in the capital, so he gets extra authority. And then I put all the ones who could move, I put them with the king. And all the ones who couldn't move, usually they can move one tile. So I took them out of the settlements, those who rebelled. So they don't affect the settlement like here, you see this article. So I took them out of the settlement, and then I had to wait for 20, 30, 40 game turns, something like that, until the king died. And when the king died, then everything reverted back to normal. But for something like 30 game turns, possibly more, I had to play with just ordinary pawns, without kings. I had to play with these guys. These guys were going around conquering things and so on. And all the family members actually were either immobile outside settlements, or they were stuck with the king. So what sort of role play gaming is this? Really think about it. I mean, it works the opposite way of what you intended it to be. I mean, sure, you have to take care of your faction members, but if it gets so extreme and you cannot play with them anymore, and they are stuck, you cannot move them, what sort of role-play gaming is this? I don't get it. It's completely the opposite of what one should be doing. I mean, it's an interesting script, but a little bit, sort of counterintuitive, at least. And I don't personally like it, but maybe somebody likes it. I would have preferred that this sort of thing we see in Stainless Steel and also in the vanilla game, that if you have zero chivalry and zero dread and low authority, and you happen to become a king for some reason, then I can see why everything should go into low public order state, and maybe you can mold this to make it even more extreme. But how it has been done here, you cannot move your pawns anymore, you cannot move your generals and so on. It's a little bit too extreme. I mean, it's like you're waiting for the game to start again for like 30 game turns for something to happen. It's not a lot of fun. Okay, so that's the loyalty script. It's like some kind of really catastrophic event if it happens. And the question is, why was this guy, the only guy who had any dread, picked up to become the faction leader? I haven't worked it out. There's a thing called an heir ancillary somewhere here. There's a previous seal, I don't know. There's something like an heir ancillary. Heir as in the faction heir. One of them has it. I cannot work out who has it. It's some irrelevant guy. I mean, it doesn't, who is, maybe it's this one. It's not the heir, it's just some random guy. Here it is. This guy has the heir crown. I can't remember how he ended up. Did I give it to him? It's possible. I can't remember. But he has not become the heir. Will never become the heir. It's just some random guy. He's just got the ancillary and he does nothing. Sometimes maybe it works. Maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe I've given it to him. I can't remember what I did. But when I give it to someone, he never becomes the heir. He just dies or something. And, the heir is some other guy. The heir is somewhere else. Anyway, so I'm not sure if I'm not using the ancillary correctly or if it's not working. Faction heir is this guy, Emir the Sickly. He's in Ray. Is he also a rebel? No, he's not a rebel. He's not a rebel. Generally loyal, supply excessive. A royalist, yes. Okay, that's good. So some guys, if they stay with the king, they get traits like this one, like royalist, or he has the king's eye sometimes if they're in the settlement near the king, or stuff like that, or he has attended the king's court, and then they improve in their loyalty. And that's what kind of set this issue here with this low loyalty of some of the generals. Okay, so we cover this point. Another interesting feature is the way the Mongols were nerfed, or buffed or nerfed. The Germans say nerfed, the Americans say buffed. So let's take off the fog of war here are the Mongols. So they've taken Samarkand, that's very nice. They've taken Kujand and Balazagun, this place here. These two were Kahitan settlements. And Samarkand at this point, I believe, belonged to the Khwarezm. But look what has happened. They have all these mega stacks, about 30 of them, and they've lined them up along the border. It's crazy. What's going on? Look at this. All along their border, they've lined up these stacks here at the Karahitai. They've lined up the stacks and they sit there and doing nothing. And they've been like this for God knows how many game turns. They just do nothing. Okay, one guy has left their kingdom, has gone up here to the Karahitai, but all the other ones are sitting around the border. I do believe they can move. I don't think the supply script affects the AI armies. I think it only affects the human player. So I do believe they can move, but still they're not moving. This is possibly a script that is part of the campaign AI. And there's a command there you can make. You can tell the AI to do what to do with certain factions, certain armies, if a certain situation arises. And so one option is to tell that one faction should just put their armies close to the border. And because the Mongols have 30 armies, they've made a complete like Maginot line. It's crazy. Anyway, and look at this guy, very clever.
You will come to appreciate my methods, friend. They work.
Okay, we're allies to with the Mongols. But this guy is on the bridge. That's great. How? I don't know if this was chance of the AIs doing this. I've never seen this before. He's guarding the bridge. Very clever. He's guarding the passes. So, that's what happened to the Mongols. This is one way to nerf the Mongols. I'm not sure this is a way I like. We have a game that generates some 30 Mongol stacks and then you make them immobile in this way. I'm not sure if this is a good plan. I would have preferred fewer stacks that are more active, personally. But maybe it's because this is on easy difficulty. I don't know. What else was I going to say about the Mongols? Cannot remember now. Ah, yes. Another thing that happens, it's also unique to Buff and Shine, is that the Sunni factions, only the Sunnis, can launch jihad. And they only launch jihad against settlements occupied by the Mongols. So that's another way to keep the Mongols in check. In actual history, the Muslims didn't think of this. It sounds like a good idea. Maybe they weren't even strong enough collectively to stand up against the Mongols. But they're also divided. In any case, it's a potential thing. Perhaps they could have thought of this and launched a jihad against the Mongols. Maybe then they would have been more effective. Or if they were defeated, Islam would have collapsed. Who knows? Alternative history. So you can see this. You can see this in this mod. You can see the Muslim factions declaring jihad against the Mongols, and for example, attacking Samarkand or Bukhara if they're occupied by Mongols. That's an interesting idea, I would say. So that's the Mongols, how they have been dealt with. Now, portraits, I have now gone back to the vanilla portraits. You see here, all vanilla portraits. You see the characters, they're all vanilla portraits. The actual Buff and Shine mod had portraits from Mike Golf's Broken Crescent portrait mod. It was a mod made for a previous version of Broken Crescent, and it had portraits for all factions, for all cultures and so on, which were different from the vanilla ones. And some of them were good, some of them were not great. A lot of them had no depth. They were like washed out, and very tightly cropped, and very strange selection I'll show you some. I have deleted them from the game, but I've saved a few screenshots. And so I'll open up some of the screenshots if I can find them. So here's one. So here we have Ispaba the Just. This is our king. And you can see it looks like this guy from the king from Lord of the Rings to me. It's like a Danish actor. It doesn't look at all Muslim. It's actually a nicely done image, but he doesn't look at all Muslim, at least to me. And then here's some other generals at the bottom. If you check down at the bottom, the second guy, it looks like it's been photoshopped with stuff on his head to make him look Muslim or something. Very closely cropped. It doesn't look like he looks like, you know, American or something. The third guy looks European, could have been Nordic, could have been like, possibly could have made a good Roman or something. It definitely is not Muslim. The helmet is not Muslim. I mean, it's nothing Muslim about him. The fourth guy, very closely cropped, and he has something photoshopped on top of his head. It looks like a turban. He's an American guy or something, or Spanish, maybe Hispanic, I don't know. It's not, I mean, these guys, none of these looks Muslim. None of this looks Arab or Persian or anything like this. I mean, at least I don't feel, yeah, they look Europeans, look some kind of guy or something that's put some stuff on, and some, you know, some kind of guy from recreation of whatever, and then maybe an actor or something. It doesn't look at all Muslim. Then the Abbasid captains have this funny thing on their heads. It looks like a helmet potentially. Looks a bit silly, but it's okay. I mean, that's not so bad. Let's look at some of the other. Oh, by the way, that's another point. That's a good place to make this point. Look at the types of armies the AI hires. It hires these stupid armies. Maybe it'll show you some in the game. They're all levies, basically. They have about 2 cavalry units, 3 cavalry units. They're all levies. Here's another general, Mia Cheek the Wrathful. It's not so nice. I mean, it looks somewhat Asiatic. And then Mia Cheek the Wrathful again. Same issue, you know, again, the AI army has tons of militia, no cavalry. And yeah, I keep defeating these armies. Like, look here, this was I believe this was a siege. Yeah, this was a siege. And there was an army outside or something. I attacked this army in the night. And this army was bigger than my army. But it was just militia, and I had mostly cavalry. I completely wiped out these armies. I had 244 casualties. I mean, the balancing is rubbish. And I'll tell you why it's rubbish. Here's another example. Here's another battle. I have some cavalry, also some very good units. The AI has mostly militia again. And I'll tell you why this happens. The militia have been given some high values, like, you know, some militia have huge. Let's go back to the mod. Let's go back. So we're back in the game. Let's have a look at the units. I've already said something about this on my preview about version 2.4. Let's have a look at the units. This is the basic unit, 750 florins to recruit. It's just an axe unit, but at least it has an axe. I mean, this is another unit. This spear unit, 950. Hey, what are they spears have diamond points or something, and have the gold teeth or something? I don't know. It's not, why 950 for a unit? Basically militia spearmen. It's a middle level. It's not very high. I mean, look, it has some defense or something, but it's not great. I mean, it's not like some super unit. It's some average unit. Yeah, Yeah, these artists have defense, total defense of 5. I mean, it's pretty average. It costs 1,000. Why shooting golden arrows? I mean, what's the idea? They're incredibly expensive. And what happens? Whereas compare this cavalry, it's also 1,000, and it's cavalry. Okay, this unit is also costing 1,000. It's cavalry. It also only has 180 upkeep, and this unit can destroy any of these infantry units. In fact, several of these, or can destroy any infantry unit, almost anywhere, any kind. And even these levies cost more than this cavalry unit. It's very strange. In any case, what happens then is the AI thinks when it sets up an army, oh, these units, this infantry is super expensive, must be super good. You know, it's like, it must be better than the Varangians or the Papal Guard, the Swiss Guard or something. Wow, you know, 1,000 florins or whatever, you know. I'm getting this straight away. And so he forms armies with these crappy units. And then you attack some cavalry that's worth nothing, that's costs nothing, but super good. And you wipe these units out, and I don't think that's very good. But I've complained about this already. The EDU is, from my point of view, a bit of a mess at the moment, and it's just no logic behind it. I'm sorry. It wasn't my idea. There is some logic in making cheap units worth something, but I think that's already in the game. So these very cheap units, they help with public order, even though they're very cheap. But I think this is part of the game. It's the way the mechanics work. Already take account of that. I don't think you need to go a step further, or like 10 steps further. Okay, so the next point I want to say something, since we are talking about some of the changes that Byzantine Boy introduced, is his Jizzya, Kafirs and Dimmis submod. So this was a very interesting submod he made, and that included various new buildings, as well as various character portraits for these guys who are around here. So these ones, these merchants or diplomats and so on. So he added a lot more of these. Now he added portraits, character portraits like this ones. What he hasn't done, however, in this submod, what he hasn't done, what we haven't done yet in the mainstream Broken Crescent, is we haven't introduced the whole of his mod, and there is a problem with introducing it. It's not a simple one. Buff and Shine has introduced it, but there is an issue with this. I never build these buildings, okay? So this building here is called Dhimmi Community. If you click on it, you see a Dhimmi or protected person. They were paying high taxes to the Muslims, but they were non-Muslims. They were Christians or Jews or whatever. And there were traders, mainly trading communities. And they were based in big cities mostly. And so they helped the economy a little bit because they had to pay high taxes. Therefore, they were very active in trading. And there was an incentive to trade because they had to pay a lot of money. It was a per capita tax. So it didn't matter how much money you made so much. It's just that per capita you had to pay a lot of money as taxes if you were not Muslim. But these were often tolerated. And so Byzantine Boy introduced them into the game. And they introduced them in the previous version of Broken Crescent. Now, what is the problem with this building, which I never built? And why do I never build it? This is Buff and Shine. So in Buff and Shine, you can this submod that was made for a previous version of Broken Crescent has been introduced. But I'll show you why it doesn't work and why it's not part of the main mod. And we have to do something about this. The reason it doesn't work is this. We have a religion conversion bonus negative -3%, and public order bonus due to law -10%. So together -13%. So if a settlement had, let's say, 110 public order, you build this building, you spend, what is it, 2,000, something like 2,500 florins, and then 6 game turns. After you build it and spend all this money, you get public order of -13 penalty. So you have to hire one of these units to offset it. And for example, you hire this one, it has an upkeep of 225, 750 to hire it, 225 upkeep. Now, what this building gives you is an income bonus of plus 100, but then you hire a unit that just the upkeep is plus. The cheapest unit has an upkeep of about 200 plus. And so it's pointless, basically. You lose money by building this building because you have to have units to then bring up the public order. Unless the public order is not very critical, you need units to bring the public order back up. And so it's almost pointless because whatever money you're going to make from this building, you're going to lose it by hiring militia to restore public order. Now there's the other thing here. It says increasing tradable goods. This is an unknown number. As far as I remember, the trade bonus, there was a discussion about it like many years ago. It has not been proven that it actually exists. I mean, you have in buildings, sometimes buildings give you a trade bonus. It says increasing tradable goods and trade bonus. But someone tried to did some research and some tests, and he could not find any effect of this trade bonus. If a building gives you a tax bonus, then that has an effect. If it gives you income bonus, like here, it has an effect. But if it gives you a trade bonus, apparently this guy was claiming that it doesn't have an effect. And it was a big discussion. Many people said, oh, it must give you an effect. And I said, you know, try it. I cannot find an effect. And it was a long discussion for, I can't remember, like weeks or something. And nobody could really show positive proof that the trade bonus actually works. And so it could well be that all this building does is that it gives you an income bonus of plus 100, plus 100 per turn. But then you have to hire units to offset the penalty in public order. And so it's almost pointless. The way the mod works now, the way Broken Crescent works now, it's pointless building this building. So that's an issue. Point 11, I do believe now, we're talking about the nerfed priests, the buffed priests. This slows down religious conversion. This is particularly an issue with Shia factions or factions that have very unique religions, maybe Eastern Christianity or something like that. They're going to have a big problem expanding because religious conversion is so slow. And probably the last point that I want to cover is the ancillaries. So there are very many new ancillaries, especially these ones these generals have. This one's Army of Ganja and so on. This one out, I believe this one out originally in Broken Crescent. They've come from some other mods, from Deus Lo Vult or some other mod, possibly from Stainless Steel. They've been introduced recently. I don't remember if they are in the main game anymore. But they are in the Buff and Shine submod. And what does this do now? It gives you a tax bonus. That works, we know that. Personal security and -2 loyalty. -2 loyalty. And so that's part of the issue of why this loyalty, you know, how this loyalty script works and how these generals are losing loyalty. Every general gets one of these because there are more settlements than generals or faction members. And then they end up with this issue, -2 loyalty, -2 loyalty everywhere. And so what I've tried to do, I'm not sure if I've done it already at this point, is I try to offload all these annoying army ancillaries onto the guys who've been kicked out of the settlements. They're sitting there doing nothing. Okay, I haven't done it yet. So at one point I started doing it because I was fed up. These users ancillaries, I wish I could throw them into the Caspian Sea. I haven't done it yet. So that's about these traits. There are also various other traits. Let's see if we can find here. There are a few interesting things like Black Eunuch. I can remember what this does. There's unrest again, problems with public order. Then, okay, we have the army ancillary, we have the air crown that doesn't work. and various other stuff like that, mostly relating to loyalty,
Yes.
related things, and mostly these ancillaries are not good. Who has other
Orders, my
ancillaries?
lord.
Black Eunuch, we've seen this one. I mean, maybe the king, Isambard, has something. Isambard. Tribal captain, that's okay, that existed already. Ah, there's another one, the Privy Seal. This has +1 loyalty. Grand Vizier. But anyway, some of these are from vanilla, some of them have been introduced by the submod. And there are additional ancillaries and traits, but I'm not sure, you know, if you end up in a situation like this where you cannot do anything with your generals,
Honored to serve, my lord.
what is the point of having all these traits and ancillaries? So that covers all the points I wanted to cover, I think. So there are possibly other scripts. There are some scripted invasions or so on that are not talked about. I haven't really looked at the code very much, so I'm just saying what my experience was from just playing this campaign. It's a very different gameplay from the standard Broken Crescent. It's more like stainless steel with additional scripts added. It's like all kinds of scripts working all the time. It makes sometimes, you know, you see when I click on the settlement, it takes forever for the settlement scroll to open up because of all these scripts running. Okay, here it's been disabled. I'll probably destroy this because I don't like them, the lower public order. These buildings, what's the public order here? It's okay, I guess that's why I left it. If you like this kind of stainless steel-like feel, you may like the mod. And if you like it, maybe you'll find it fun to play. It's different from Broken Crescent, though. It's very, very different. So that covers, as I said, all I want to say. I hope you found my preview interesting, at least enlightening. Thank you for watching.